What does it mean to make a difference in the world?
Just in general, just across the board?
It is a deep question. There's like so many different answers to it.
I think anyone can make a difference in the world or in life. It could be like the smallest thing, the smallest gesture.
I definitely feel like one person can make a difference in the world.
I don't know, being constantly happy, I think is the thing that I try to do.
I think I can make a difference by investing in things that are actually bigger than me.
I think you can make a difference in the world by raising awareness.
I think people just can make a bigger impact than they think they can.
I think just a simple smile can make a humongous difference in the world.
Okay, now we're talking. Make a difference. Change the world. Yes, that's so inspiring. I'm sorry, it's just, I remember the day I told my dad I wanted to change the world, and he told me to start by changing the channel. Yeah, we didn't have a remote. Classic dad. But how do you change the world? Recycle. Volunteer. It's the cumulative power of a million tiny individual acts. It's understanding how a single butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the planet can become hurricane-force winds on the other. And that, my friends, is why wherever I go, I try to kill as many butterflies as I can. I like to think of myself as a kind of Johnny Appleseed. We all do our part. But here's the thing about changing the world, folks. Sometimes we talk as if the world is just sitting somewhere waiting for us to change it. Balderdash! The world is always changing. In fact, these days, it's changing pretty dang fast. It's gonna be a different world next week than it is today. One big, endless road trip round and round the sun. And you're either along for the ride, or you're helping turn the wheel. And yeah, people say history repeats itself, but this car, it never visits exactly the same place twice. That's why in a lot of ways, the human experience is really more of a human experiment. Every turn of the steering wheel, we're experimenting with something new. What happens if we invent the printing press, personal computers, or smartphones? Sometimes we jump into these great human experiments by choice. Other times we simply find ourselves born into the latest human experiment. So why are we starting today with all this talk of social movements and history and change? Because we are currently living through a massive human experiment, my friends, and it affects every one of us. The central question is this: what happens when you give hundreds of millions of people unfettered access to every genre of pornography imaginable? And as in all great human experiments, history is watching as the results roll in.
Hi, my name's Greg. I arrived in Hollywood, starry-eyed, like so many young actors, thinking that the world was their oyster. I actually had some success. I got a job in a movie, I was doing some TV work, and one particular job, makeup artist gave me her card. She said, if you ever want to do any nude work, you should call this number. I thanked her, thinking, well, if I do that, then that will ruin my chances at a movie career. Well, fast forward a little bit, a couple of months, I decided to make that fateful phone call. They said, be at this place at a certain time. So I jumped on my motorcycle the next morning, and I went. And I made my first porno. I walked out of there at the end of the day with 4 crisp, brand new $100 bills. I was thinking, that was really easy. But I also remember thinking, what have I done? Someday someone will find out. Little did I know that it would turn into this. I became the most popular, most decorated male adult film star of all time.
We're basically going to be talking today about 2 things: the ways the worldwide demand for porn affects the individuals in the porn industry, and also the ways the porn industry affects all of us worldwide. And I think if we're going to do that, there's a logical place we have to start, and that's in Rome, with a statue of St. Peter. We're here to talk about his foot. You see, it's almost gone. Now, why is Peter's foot almost gone? This statue might be over 1,000 years old, and through all that time, tourists and pilgrims have been visiting the statue and sanding it down with a grinder? Melting it with a blowtorch? Nope, they've been touching it with their fingertips. Did I fail to mention the statue is made of bronze? Now, as someone who has used a metal hammer, I can tell you from personal experience that when it comes to metal versus finger, metal wins, right? Metal always wins. I mean, skin against bronze? How is this possible? Apparently, when it comes to millions of touches, metal doesn't stand a chance, because that's what destroyed the statue's ancient foot, worn down to a nub by the cumulative power of millions of human touches. We talked earlier about porn's effect on one person, one couple, one family. The question today is, what happens when you take those exact same effects and multiply them by millions around the world? Because no single person meant to destroy Peter's foot, but a million little actions can add up to one big unintended result.
My name is Deanna. I am currently in Wilmore, Kentucky.
So do you want to do a few minutes of foam rolling? We'll stretch and then we'll start our cardio.
By first grade, I was walking to school and I thought, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer, but first I want to be a porn star. At first grade, I'm thinking, when I'm 18, I'll just go ahead and get it over with. I already know that's going to be my life, and then I'm going to do something great with my life afterwards. Like, I had no idea it was going to take over my life for 10 years, getting stuck in the porn industry.
Let's talk about where we are. Here are a few numbers for you. Worldwide, porn is a $97 billion industry. Porn sites get more traffic than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. What does that add up to in terms of the actual amount of porn being watched? Well, in 1 year, one single porn website streamed 4,599,000,000 hours of porn. So let me just grab my calculator here. Let's see, 365 days in your standard Gregorian year, 366 in a leap year, 24 hours in a day, carry the one. About 8,765.82 hours a year. Divide that into our total and 52,465 years of porn watched in one single year on one single porn website. And how many porn websites are there? Oh yeah, a gajillion. But why does any of that matter? Let's hear from Dr. John Fobert. He's an interdisciplinary scholar with over 50 peer-reviewed publications, many of which about the harms of pornography and sexual violence.
Pornography is a recipe for rape, and I'm not saying that anytime someone uses pornography they're going to commit rape, but what it essentially teaches people is that you're supposed to be violent when you're intimate with somebody. There was a study that came out of the University of Arkansas and NYU. They looked at 50 porn films. But what I found most interesting about that research is that when someone hits another person in porn, 95% of the time they respond with either pleasure or they have no response at all. So when we have kids looking at porn, the message the boys are getting is, well, I guess she likes to be hit. The message the girls are getting is, if he hits me, I should like it.
One of the things that they prey upon is being able to show, like, basically how much abuse one can take, how violent something can get. And so you have to be able to look like you're enjoying that or not make any facial expressions.
Modern pornography regularly depicts violent behavior that most of us would consider criminal. That's a fact. The question is, how does that impact our culture? Does violent porn lead to more violence? According to a growing number of studies, it does.
Pornography changes the social context of our world.
Dr. Karen Countryman Roseworm is the director of the Center for Combating Human Trafficking at Wichita State University.
It causes you to disengage from yourself and disengage from other people. And anytime you start disengaging from yourself and from other people, it increases risk of causing harm, whether that's physical or sexual harm to somebody else.
At a very core level, it changes people. It changes their beliefs, it changes their ideas, it changes their behavior.
That's Dr. Jill Manning, a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in sexual addiction.
In the last 10 years especially, we've seen an increase in the number of studies coming out showing a correlation and association between pornography use and domestic violence. And we know from a number of studies that if someone is a regular consumer of pornography, their risk for becoming abusive and aggressive increases by at least a third. That's significant. We need to take stock of that. The ripple effects are enormous.
We need to be sure and mention here that we are not saying everyone who looks at porn is going to commit a violent crime. But we've already seen how porn does rewire what we want, change the way we think, and yes, change the way we act. Not just because it often depicts violence, but because it causes us to see people as less than human.
What pornography did to me was it changed how I thought and felt about women. I began to look at them even more so as a sexual object. There was no emotion involved in the act of making love. What was that, making love? I had sex for money. I was a prostitute.
What they do is they take a woman and they start to make her into a character, into a fantasy. And so that's basically what happened with me, is they started making me kind of a brand. And so I have to somehow tap into this character that is willing to do anything so that I can keep getting work. And that's how I started really just losing myself to the character that they were creating for me.
In 2017, the world began to pay special attention to the abuse and violence that women experience every day. It was a conversation that was long overdue.
Thousands of women are using two words on social media. It's #MeToo.
The Me Too movement, it is growing this morning. Me Too.
Me Too. A new ABC News Washington Post poll revealing an estimated 33 million American women have been sexually harassed. And these personal stories are just the tip of the iceberg.
About 1,000 women in entertainment are behind this new movement.
Hollywood stars are joining women everywhere to send a message. The time for sexual harassment in the workplace is up.
A standard advertisement for porn will brag about exactly the kind of violence against women that the world is finally learning to shun.
There have been over 50 studies showing a direct link between pornography and sexual violence. And from statistical odds, here's what we know. You take the Empire State Building, you fill it with pennies, and then you take that and you make 1 billion Empire State Buildings filled with pennies. The odds that you pick the right Empire State Building out of 1 billion of them, you go to the right floor and you pick out that right penny. That one penny represents statistically the likelihood that really there's no connection between porn and sexual violence.
Okay, you nervous?
A little. My name is Jessa Dillocrisp. I'm originally from Canada, and I never say A.
You did it! So, we could get into your story now.
Cool. So I was born into a family that was not a safe family. It started with sexual abuse, and then it turned into then child pornography, and then that was when the sex trafficking started. I was told that all I was good for was to be a little prostitute. My nickname was Little P. So that did not stop until I was 21, and so even as an adult, I also had pornography taken and was being trafficked as an adult.
We're moving now into some pretty heavy stuff, and look, I know I'm supposed to try and make things entertaining and all that for you guys, but honestly, I've got nothing funny to say here. We've got to talk about modern-day slavery. Oh, you thought slavery was a thing of the past? Yeah, so did I.
Pornography is really prostitution on screen.
As the executive director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, Taina Bien-Aimé has dedicated her career to ending violence and discrimination against women and girls.
The traffickers are the same, the pimps are the same, the women and girls and men and boys are the same victims that are being sold in the sex trade and in other avenues and other venues.
Here are the numbers. Sex trafficking is a $99 billion a year business with 4.5 million victims around the world, about half of whom are children. It's bigger and more local than you think. What does that have to do with porn? Well, porn and trafficking have been described as having a symbiotic relationship. In other words, each one feeds the other.
My name is Lexi. I'm from Nashville. The first time I was molested was as a toddler. The first time I was raped, I was 6. The first time I was sold, I was 11. So right before any time a customer was going to be like brought into the room, I would be shown pornography and like forced to watch to know what that person was going to be expecting. In my experience, being younger, if I didn't live up to that performance, like something really bad was going to happen or I wasn't going to live through it.
Traffickers have utilized pornography to, in a sense, train their victims on how to provide these commercial sex acts.
Misa Nguyen is the Director of Education at United Against Human Trafficking.
They use it as a tool in the grooming process to prepare their victim.
Sex industry businessmen don't separate different arms of the sex industry.
That's Dr. Melissa Farley, a clinical psychologist and executive director at Prostitution Research and Education. She's written 26 peer-reviewed articles and 2 books on prostitution and sex trafficking.
There isn't pornography over here, prostitution over here, and trafficking over there. They're interlinked.
My name's Elizabeth Smart. When I was 14 years old, I was kidnapped and held captive for 9 months. He led me up behind my house, up into the mountains, and the next thing I knew, this man was telling me I was his wife and then raping me. And I remember at that point just feeling like, how can you get any lower than this? And it was just a few days later that my captor pulled out this magazine full of hardcore pornography. And I remember he'd look at me and he'd be like, now we're gonna do this. It just led to him raping me more than he already did, which was a lot. It also was so hard because the things that these women were being photographed doing were things that I was being forced to do. And it was almost like they were setting the bar, setting the standard of what my captor was gonna force me to do next. And for me, that really was very painful and very damaging to me. It almost felt like this pornography was like my sentencing.
I was being shown pornography by buyers who wanted me to act out specific things, fantasies that they had, like being told, like, this is what I want you to do. This is like, can you do this? Can you do this position? Can you make me feel this way? Can you act like her? But I was also then having to go back on screen and having to do that again for the videographers.
That's a simple way that porn feeds trafficking. But what about the ways that trafficking feeds porn? According to one survey, almost half of the sexually exploited women said that porn was made of them while they were being sold for sex. And here's the thing, when you watch porn, you have no idea if you're watching a trafficking victim or not.
I was being raped, but I had a smile on my face. I had to act like I enjoyed it. I often felt like I was a China doll. You know, like how China dolls have like smiles painted on their face? That was like the way that I saw myself. Done up, dolled up, being made to do things that I did not want to do. I didn't escape until I was 21, so this continued until basically just before I escaped.
It would be easy for someone to see all this and say, okay, I just need to stay away from anything that even looks like it might be trafficking. I should only watch regular, mainstream porn with paid actors who clearly gave their consent. But as we're about to see, consent can be a tricky word.
You cannot guarantee that when you are looking at an image on the internet that someone is not being exploited in that. You cannot guarantee that. You cannot guarantee the age of someone. You can't guarantee what that image will be used for down the road. Maybe that image If it is someone of age and that has chosen to do that, maybe that image will be used to groom a child for child abuse down the road. There are just so many moving factors that when we are narcissistically consumed in our own use of something, we're not considering.
Many of the women who are in the production of pornography are actually victims of sex trafficking.
That's Dr. Donna Hughes. She's a professor at the University of Rhode Island and a leading international researcher on human trafficking.
If a producer of pornography says, you come and we will do this particular sex act and pay you. If they show up and they say, well, we've decided we're going to do something else, the woman has been tricked. And then there's coercion, meaning that there's subtle ways of threatening her. We won't pay you, you won't be able to do any more films, you won't make any money, we'll complain to your agent. All these things are tactics of coercion.
This is what directors will tell you, is if you don't do certain things, they won't get you any more work. Or there's times where you go to set and again, you're being hired for one specific thing and they're like, well, that's not what we're filming here, we're filming this. And so it's like, you can either make money today or you can't, but this is what we're filming.
Let's talk for a minute about the law. Sex trafficking is legally defined in part as a commercial sex act as a result of force, fraud, or coercion. Let's break that down. Commercial sex act. That means a sex act where someone made money. Force, fraud, or coercion? That means you were physically threatened, tricked, or pressured into participating against your will. You see where this is going, right? And here's where the real connections to porn begin.
These terms, those actually still box us in to this thinking that human trafficking can only look this one particular way. And the reality is that we need to broaden the net to, again, really begin to understand this as sexual exploitation on a continuum of violence.
Forced doesn't just mean at gunpoint. Force doesn't mean you have shackles on your ankles. People can be forced by a need to eat or to pay for a tank of gas.
Most people would never dream of contributing to the exploitation of another person. And yet, because of the ways that porn is produced, that's exactly what often happens, even with mainstream porn. Because the dirty little secret of the porn industry is that this stuff isn't even rare. It happens all the time.
There was one scene that I did where they had been so violent that I would stop and take shots of alcohol just to be able to take what they needed to do to me. I knew I had to finish the scene because I didn't want my agent mad at me, and my agent was working with my pimp and I didn't want my pimp mad at me. And so I still finished the scene, but I just went to the adult industry doctor and I got medicine so I wouldn't feel the pain anymore.
There was a lot of drugs, and I found myself addicted to cocaine, alcohol. See, for me, I had to go to work to do the porn so that I could buy the drugs to bury the pain of doing the porn. So I'd go to work and do the porn so that I could buy the drugs to bury the pain, and around and around it went.
These victims, they're victimized once when they're sexually abused, but they're victimized then over and over and over again as these images are recirculated on the internet.
Ernie Allen is the founder, former president, and CEO of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
So it is a massive problem that is dramatic in scope because of the internet.
I think what makes the porn industry different than other forms of selling sex is the fact that everybody forever can watch some of the most horrible things I've experienced in life.
As survivors have explained to me, pornography is a document of a woman's humiliation, and it's out there forever, and it causes extreme emotional distress.
So the first time he raped me, I noticed that there was a video camera set up in his closet. The fact that there is video out there somewhere of me and being raped, and I don't know how that's been cut and edited to like look and appear like a certain way. The thing that went through my mind was, are people gonna see this? Like, is my family gonna see this? And the people I care about the most, it always felt like a possibility in the back of my mind.
I think it was in 2010, I received notification that my pornography was found on the internet. And talking to my investigators, talking to my officers and detectives, just finding the listings where they were finding that, and then finding out that the IP addresses were changing, and realizing that even though I am physically free, my imaging is still being sold. And in many ways, even when I let my mind go there, I feel like I'm being raped and exploited still, because they're still making money off of my pain, my trauma, and my humiliation.
It's so easy to think that when you're looking at porn, that you're in no way part of the problem, that you're just simply using the entertainment that is there for everybody.
That's Cordelia Anderson. She's the founder and president of Sensibilities Prevention Services, which specializes in preventing sexual harm.
Each and every viewer feeds demand. Each and every viewer is further victimization of that person whose degradation and sometimes out-and-out abuse and violence is being filmed. Each click, click, click is another level of violation.
What if you view porn sometimes and you never really thought about all this impact on the world? Maybe no one has really talked about this with you before. So many people have been caught up in porn because it's so easy. But now that we are starting to see how it affects other people and the world, we can make more informed decisions. So here we are. We've come to this place, and yeah, we've got challenges. But let me tell this one last story. On April 25th, 2015, an earthquake hit Kathmandu in Nepal. Within 54 seconds, it had wiped out over 500,000 homes. It leveled buildings across 4 countries, killed nearly 10,000 people, and injured 26,000 more. So why am I telling you this? Haven't we heard enough sad stories today? Listen to what happened next.
Help from across the globe has begun to roll in. The US, Israel, Belgium, France, the UK, as well as neighboring India and Pakistan have sent help.
Before the day was over, money, searchers, and supplies were pouring in from 60 countries, 35 relief organizations, and countless businesses and individuals. People used Twitter to send search updates and contact loved ones. A Facebook service identified dangerous areas in the city, and all the while, crowdfunding websites raised everything from money to clean water to corrugated metal sheets for shelters. We live in an amazing time. Technology lets us see and respond instantly to situations all across the globe. We've already talked about the destructive power of 1 million individual actions. Well, what about the combined power of 1 million acts for good? You see it every day on your Facebook page, in your Twitter feed, on the news. The remarkable power of technology to focus our attention on a single worthy cause, to multiply 1 million voices.
After I was rescued, my mom gave me a piece of advice. She said to me, Elizabeth, what these people have done to you is so terrible, but the best punishment that you could ever give them is to be happy. And that advice has helped make me who I am today.
I quit, retired, and I changed my life. I began my life.
I still get scared that some of my individuals who have viewed my pornography will recognize me, but as the years have gone on, that's gotten less and less, and I feel like I can walk around with much more confidence, and that does not need to define who I am today.
One of the key things that helped me in walking away was forgiveness, and just to kind of take that control back and choose to just let go of it. It's really freeing.
I have gone on to become an advocate against pornography. I witnessed firsthand just how damaging it is.
Things now are amazing. I'm more free than I ever thought that I would be. gosh, I never even thought I'd be married. You know, I never thought anybody would want me after everything that I had been through.
I get to come home to a husband who encourages and empowers me. I found purpose and passion in things that had nothing to do with porn or sex or image. Yeah, I love my life now.
So John was a huge part in teaching me that it is possible to experience real love. My goal is to help people who have been through horrific stuff and are wanting to take steps into this big world that they are starting to engage with for the first time. It's just pretty amazing, like how relationships can hurt you, but also how relationships can heal you.
Hold up, what is this feeling? I can't believe it's got me dreaming.
We've learned so much over the course of 3 episodes. We've been introduced to the way that porn can rewire the brain. We've learned how that rewiring can ultimately lead to broken homes and relationships. And we've seen today the devastating effects as porn's influence spreads and grows. We're all in this human experiment together, and human history has seen all kinds of challenges. But here's the thing. When you look at the history of the world, the question is rarely, when will we realize there's a problem? The question almost always is, when will we decide to do something about it?
So I think I can change the world by ultimately living for something kind of beyond myself.
I believe even the smallest things can matter. Accumulated over time, those small things add up to a big difference.
It starts with me, influencing another individual.
Making a difference means changing someone's perspective on how they see things.
First thing you got to do is start with your community, and I think if you want to change your community, you got to start with yourself.
Making a difference is to have an impact on someone or a group.
I hope to inspire the kids that I work with in such a way that they would recognize the potential that they have within themselves.
As cheesy as it sounds, I truly believe that if you can just positively impact one person's life, then you're already making a positive impact.
The brain, the heart, the world. It all starts in the brain, it all centers on the heart. It all ends up in the world. We can do it. Join the movement, fight for real love. Help turn the wheel. We know where we are. Let's decide where we're going.
We hope you enjoyed episode 3 of The World, the final episode of this documentary series where we explored the harmful effects of pornography on society. By now, after watching all 3 episodes, we hope that you're motivated to get involved in the movement and to fight for real love, fight for those that are struggling, and to fight for those being victimized. Now, in addition to sharing this resource with others through social media or organizations that you're a part of, or just having conversations, we want to ask you to consider making a small donation today. Now, we're a nonprofit, so we rely on donations from individuals like you to help us create resources like our live presentations or our translated websites or content for those that struggle or content for parents or content to be able to spread this message, content like this very documentary series that you've watched. Look, never before in human history has any generation dealt with this challenge to this intensity and scale. So it's important that we help educate others on the harmful effects of pornography to individuals, relationships, and society. Now you can help us do that by making a small $10 donation today, or you can join our Fighter Club by donating monthly. So in summary, number 1, if you or somebody that you know is struggling with pornography, there is hope, and you can go to joinfortify.com/FTND, or you can download the free Fortify app on the App Store. Number 2, we need you. Share this message, either in your conversations with others or in social media or online. Help get this message out there through your network. And number 3, make a donation today to help further the cause. Thank you so much for being a part of this.